In this episode, we break down what I call the core four. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps, Big Changes. Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps, Big Changes, where I share simple strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Gregg Clunis, and in this episode, we are talking about the core four. That is the core main areas in your life where if you can sort of break your life down into them and then pursue goals that sort of align with one of them, you will be on the path to a healthy, successful, quote unquote, life. So I'm going to be diving deep into each of those four, sort of how I think about them in my own life, and give you some thoughts as to how you could possibly utilize this in your life as well. With that said, if you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe wherever you are consuming this. If you are watching over on YouTube, yes, my friends, we do have a YouTube. Head over to youtube.com/Gregg Clunis. If you're listening on audio right now, pull over the car, stop running for a second, head over to youtube.com/Gregg Clunis and click subscribe wherever you're consuming this. If you are listening on iTunes, Spotify, Castbox, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts, click subscribe there as well. Really appreciate you. And let's jump into the episode. So what exactly is the core four? Well, many of the OG listeners of this show, the people who have been here since day one, you've heard me talk, or if you've read the book, you've heard me talk about the 6 pillars. Now, the 6 pillars was sort of the predecessor to the core four. The core four is an evolution on this concept. So the original 6 pillars was these sort of 6 pillar areas of your life that you could break your goals down into. And so this was your fitness, your nutrition, your finances, your career, your relationships, and your emotional health. Those were these 6 core areas. I've decided over the last year-ish, maybe year and a half, to drill that down a little bit further. And the reason for this was in order to get more clear on what mattered, in order to sort of add what had always been a hidden 7th pillar. And I wanted to sort of drill things down a little bit further. And most importantly, I think, was to make it easier to grasp, easier to implement into your own life. Because 6 areas, while makes sense, it allows each of the individual areas the most freedom, it's much harder to remember. It's much less practical for a lot of people, and it just raises more questions than it answered. And so we've taken the 6 pillars and we have compressed it down into the core 4. So what are the core 4? Well, you've got your health, you've got your money and career, you've got your relationships, and you've got your worldview. And those are the 4 areas that I think if you spend time setting goals in, improving on, making decisions around, if you just focus in on those 4 areas, you can start to see massive progress in your life towards the goals that you've set. And the truth is, and we're going to talk about this in a second, but the truth is that you don't want to pursue balance in these. So like I said, we're going to talk about that in a second. First, let's dive a little bit deeper into each of the core 4. So you've got health, and this is obviously broken down into its subsets: physical health, mental health, and emotional health. And I specifically separate mental and emotional because I think that they can be 2 separate things. They're not always 2 separate things, but they can be 2 separate things. For example, you might be perfectly mentally healthy, but have a lot of emotional damage due to previous relationships or due to getting your heart broken or like things like that, right? You can have be perfectly mentally healthy, but have emotional damage. On the flip side, you can be emotionally, that you might not be able to be emotionally healthy, but have like a mental health issue. That's where I think it gets a little bit gray, and I highly recommend that you conduct a professional when really diving into these. I'm just sort of breaking down how I look at it for my own life, what's worked for me. So you've got your physical, your mental, and your emotional. Moving on from health, and by the way, physical also includes nutrition and fitness. So using your body and then fueling your body. So moving on, you've got money and career. So this is your finances and your career. I decided to combine these two together because they're so interwoven. Our careers are largely the drivers of our finances. Now, of course, finances and career aren't the same thing. Like money management is different from the job you have, but one does depend on the other. You know, you need a job in order to manage money. You need a source of money in order to manage that money. And if you do have a job, then you'll have money to manage. So those two things are very interwoven. It just made sense to me to put them together in sort of the same category. Moving on, we've got relationships. So this is both your platonic relationships and your romantic relationships. So your family, your friends, your loved ones, the people you hold dear, as well as your partners and your wife, your husband, your whatever relationship you have that is a bit more romantic and potentially sexual. So within this relationship category, I wanted to combine, and this is sort of true of the original 6 pillars as well. I wanted to combine these two because really it's about your connection to people, right? It's your connection to the people around you, whether platonic or otherwise. And it's really such a major part of your life, like both of those types of connections. It's such a major part of your life that it obviously deserves a spot in sort of this newer version of the core 4. But that's also why it didn't really change or get rolled into anything else, because I do think that it matters in a major way. And then finally, we've got worldview. And so I say that this used to be sort of a secret 7th pillar. And what I mean by that is many of the most popular episodes of this podcast, many of the most important and valuable episodes of this podcast were always the ones that were less about specific tactics and more about how to think about a problem or how to think about the world around you, or just sort of what I call lovingly your philosophy. And so there was always this underlying current that didn't fit into any of the 6 pillars, but was massively valuable. And based on your behavior, you were telling me you wanted more of. And so this worldview category has always existed. I used to internally call it philosophy. As I was putting together the new version of this, the core 4, I decided that it needed a much more prominent position because it plays a major role. How you view the world, how you view yourself in the world, how you view the options in front of you, how you view your goals and problems and things like that. Like your way of looking at things is a massive driver for progress. And the truth is, if you are not currently wired to look at something correctly, you're going to struggle to have progress in that area until you sort of rewire it. Now, I can't tell you what quote unquote correctly means. That's going to be very different for each person, but it is very important to have the right worldview for yourself and for the situation that you're in. If you don't have that, you're going to struggle. You're probably not even going to take actions in the first place because you're looking at the situation incorrectly. And so because it's so valuable, but is sort of hidden, it's not like a specific thing you can do. It's not like going to the gym where you can measure results. It's not like tracking your expenses where you can measure results. It's your internal work. It's the philosophical mindset stuff. It's so important, but I wanted to put it on a pedestal because it matters a lot. So those are the new 4. So you've got your health, your money and your career, your relationships, and your worldview. And so how are you supposed to use this? Like, what do you do with this information? Well, my approach with the original 6 pillars stays the same here, in my opinion. So first of all, you should not pursue balance. And the reason for that is I don't believe that balance and progress are possible. I just do not think it to be true. And I've used this activity before, but if you picture yourself standing still, you've got both feet planted on the floor, you are in perfect balance. But if there's something on the counter in front of you, you have 2 options to get it. Either you reach or you step. If you reach forward, you're sacrificing that perfect balance in order to gain something, which is the item on the counter. If you step forward, for the moment in between the step where one leg is off the ground, you are sacrificing perfect balance. And to me, this analogy just shows that it is impossible to remain in balance and also gain progress. It's just not something that we can do. And so the goal is not to pursue balance. The goal is to pick your lane, decide what thing you want to work on. Maybe right now your worldview is the biggest limiting factor. Maybe right now your career or your money is the biggest limiting factor. Maybe right now your relationships are struggling. Maybe your health is damaged. Pick your lane. Make a plan in that area. Pursue progress in that area. And then here's the trick. You want to make sure that you are paying attention to the other 3. See, that's why it's important to know what the categories are, because you can know what to look at, what to look for. If you're pursuing a goal in relationships and you are going ham at that, you're going all in, then you need to know that, hey, worldview, career and money, and health, those are the other 3 areas I need to be paying attention to. And you never want to pursue balance, but you do want to keep them from falling out of whack. And so every now and then you rebalance the portfolio, and you can think of it like an investment. You're putting money into the area that you want to improve, and then you keep an eye on the rest of the portfolio and you rebalance it every now and then to make sure nothing falls completely off the table. That has been the way that I've been able to utilize the Core 4 approach to improving my life. And that's what's gotten me the most results. Now, for me, for a very long time, career was the thing. Career and money was the thing. It still, frankly, is. I'm starting to rebalance my health now because, one, they interweave. My ability to have enough energy throughout the day to execute matters. But 2, for a period of about a year and a half, I let my health just sort of exist in the background. And I did it purposely because I was pursuing the career side and the money side. Now I'm rebalancing the portfolio and I feel great, but I get to keep the benefits that I got from going all in on career and money, right? I'm in a great place career-wise right now. And it's because I went all in for a period of time, and now I'm rebalancing the portfolio, but I still get to keep the other stuff. It's not like I have to give it back. So this is how you can utilize the Core 4 to help you in your own personal development. I hope this was valuable. I hope it's something that helped you out. If it did, click subscribe wherever you're consuming this. We're in a race right now on YouTube to try and get 1,000 subscribers. So be sure to head over to youtube.com/Gregg Clunis and click subscribe there. You can watch the podcast. I'm also going to be releasing vlogs and a bunch of other different video types like speaking and things like that. So if you've ever want to connect with me in video, see what my ugly grin looks like, head over to youtube.com/Gregg Clunis. And with that said, listen, if you feel like supporting the show, Patreon is the best way to do that. At $5 a month, you can help us to keep creating amazing content to help you get the most out of your life. $15 a month gets you a signed copy of the Tiny Leaps, Big Changes book. I will mail it to you personally. $5 a month gets you a shout out as well as a preference in future Q&A episodes and things like that. So if you feel like supporting, patreon.com/Gregg Clunis, would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Patreon.com/Tiny Leaps. I screwed that up. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to tune into the next episode. It's going to be a good one. And with that said, remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take